Intimations of hope. Was it a spell checker taking over or for another reason, but initially we got this title wrong as Imitations of Hope. Now, intimation is different than imitation. Intimation means an indication of or hint. So, are we talking about an imitation, a fake hope, or about some hints and indications of real hope?
Life was definitely not going as Job expected it to be, just on the contrary. Darkness and tragedy surrounded him. But was hope still alive in his soul? Was there any glimpse of light still able to show a hopeful promise for life? What was really Job thinking, and what was really Job believing in?
The lesson starts with an interesting insight. Somehow, we humans, we have this inner understanding of how things are supposed to be. Now, we may not always have the same ideas, but we do have this feeling, intuition, or whatever you call it, that hints us on what is right and how things ought to be. This is in the base of how we look at Job this week.
And I'm happy, I'm glad that Job is back and he's fighting. He's absolutely critical of his friends, visitors, as we read in chapter 13, who spoke earlier to him. And it seems that he kept his mind much more sober than they did. Two main points of criticism came out of his lips. First, he said to his friends, I know and I understand what you're telling me, but I'm not inferior to you guys. You're putting me down. And second, he looked at their face and said, you are forgers of lies. You are preaching the wrong message. Were they forging the facts? Were they forging the truth? No, but they were crafting a deceitful theology, their own interpretation of the facts and the truth.
I connect with Job at so many levels. His struggles, his friends. We are often also guilty of being such friends. But I'm thinking, how many times Christians, with their understandings and knowledge about God, are putting down other Christians? How many times Adventists are putting down other Adventists and non-Adventists because we're eager to defend God? So many are discouraged when in churches, meetings, on the internet, and all kinds of forums, we argue on liberals and conservatives. We're so much like Job's friends. Believing to do the right thing, we create despair. I feel depressed when going through the postings in many of our forums. I admire Job, who gathers his strength and says, enough is enough. Chapter 13 is amazing. Saying to his friends, if you have kept quiet, you would have made more sense. He openly calls them liars and forgers of lies. This is so important for us. Previously, we were kind of saying that they were saying actually truths, but were just misplaced and not very caring. But what this is misrepresenting God. These are lies and forgeries. Take a moment to grasp that.
We said earlier in some of the previous lessons that many people in this world have a hard time justifying God in the face of suffering. Moreover, for them, suffering in itself is a proof of the non-existence of a loving God. However, exactly here is where Job separates himself from the crowds by choosing differently. He chooses to continue to trust in God even if he kills him. Why choosing that way? And how do you make such a choice in such circumstances? Shortly, the answer is in the knowledge of God. And the lesson specifically draws our attention to the knowledge that we have in how our story will end as believers. And the lesson makes a parallel between that and how Job's story ended. And we can find some comfort and get some hope in knowing that.
After telling his friends to shut up, Job tells them, "You guys are not getting it. I just want an open talk with my God. I'm not against him. I'm not God's enemy. In fact, even if he kills me, I will trust him. This is faith. This is hope. You mentioned that this is based on the knowledge of God and knowing how things will unfold. But it's deeper than that. Job's friends thought that they knew. We think that we know the right doctrines, the future, the prophecies. But the knowledge of God, of Job, was bigger than that. He knew without understanding. He had questions. He had bitterness. He had disagreement. But he had faith. He had trust. He had hope.
Another great point in Job's speech is his belief in a Savior before whom he has an open access, unlike the hypocrites, as he calls them in verse 16. How far did Job's knowledge stretch? After all, I wonder. He's talking about a Savior. His hope was really in the merits of God's salvation. However, Job's commitment and Job's worship was really genuine and honest. And this hope in a Savior gave him the confidence to speak, to defend himself, and to fight back.
Job came to God with his honesty. God, this is me. I'm not playing games. I'm not pretending anything. I'm just tired of all this. And I'm confused on some things, but I count on you.
So we can conclude that Job's understanding of suffering, his belief in salvation, his position on hope is not much more different than what we have today. Stepping out of the book of Job, the last two parts of the lesson nails it down to where salvation is coming from and lists numerous examples of what kind of hope we're given as people. So it remains for us to make a choice. Who do we trust in? And what is our hope for the future?
We know a lot about our God, how engaged He is to deliver us from the slavery of sin and all this misery. We long for His return. But are we like Job's friends? Or is our hope like the one that Job had?